Hey guys, what's up? I am just working on a new tubing system for maple sap collection out in the woods, and I am going to be filming it. I'm going to be giving a step-by-step tutorial on everything, and I will be putting it on YouTube. Alright guys, the first thing that I'm doing today is I'm going to mark out the path for my main line. Now what you can see here is this is going to be my anchor tree down at the low end. So I just put a orange ribbon around that, and I am going to walk up through the woods and put ribbons everywhere that I go periodically to kind of mark the path of where I want to go when I come back later and set up the wire first for the main line. And then ultimately after that, the main line itself. Okay, so I got my path marked out through the woods right now, and what I'm going to do is start de-reeling the wire. Alright, well here we go. I'm going to start pulling out this wire and walking ahead. And again, I'm just looking for my orange flags. I am just looking for that, and I'm going to follow that path, and I'm just initially laying the wire out. There we got a maple tree that went down, a nice big one. I'm gonna have to get in here with a chainsaw. Okay, so I've got my wire pulled out, and I figure it was roughly around 12 to 1300 feet. And believe me, that was a job pulling that out. You wouldn't think so, being smooth wire pulling it through the woods, but it really was kind of winding through the path that I took, and I got all that friction against trees and the ground and whatnot. It really got tough towards the end. But anyway, what I want to do now is find a anchor tree at the high end, and that's where I am right now. So what I've got back here is a tree that I'm going to anchor the wire to, and I've marked that. Alright, so now we're going to anchor this around the tree. What I've got here is something called a gripple, and I'm going to put this through the wire first, and that you're going to put on there first. The next thing that you're going to do, put a length of tubing on the wire, and this is to ensure that the wire doesn't bite into the tree and grow into the tree. I double it up here on the end, some old scrap 5/16 tubing, and then put on some old 1-inch mainline. Cut off a little bit here with the tubing cutter. Slide that in, and we're gonna bring it around. All right. So I've got my wire through there. It's a little bit of a struggle, but what I'm going to do next then is just put the wire through the other end of that gripple fastener, and it's really that simple. Those are pretty handy because you don't have to deal with crimping sleeves and a big tool to, you know, smash it down and crimp it. It's going to push that through there by hand. We're going to get a lot of tension as we side tie the wire to elevate it, but I'll show you that as we go along. Okay, I'm down here at the other end, the low end. This is where we're going to put the tank for the collection of the sap. Now what I've done is I've marked a place on the tree, the anchor tree at the other end, where I'm going to attach the line, the wire. And I've got it at about 3 feet above the ground. That's to give enough height for the tank that I'm going to set out here under it. So you definitely want to make sure you have enough height for your tank. Okay, so I'm pulling as much slack out of the wire as I can by hand. I've got plenty cut over here, so I make sure I have plenty of room to work with. But I'm going to put another one of these gripples on. Slide that through. Slide that 5/16 tubing on. And then we'll get a measurement on what size of 1-inch tubing. Cut through it. It is nice to have the right tools. They do make the job quicker, that's for sure. Okay, we got that. Now I'm going to slide that into the gripple, and boom, it's latched in there. What's nice about those gripples is it's so easy. I like that a lot. I wish I would have thought of it, and then I wouldn't be out here doing this. But anyway, you have to have this tool right here. It just tensions the whole thing really easily. Okay, let's take it from the other way. Move your tube around because it's going to shift a little bit as you're tightening. This really works cool. I like it. I would recommend it. Okay guys, so the first thing is you side tie to trees. So back here, this tree I'm looking at straight ahead, I'm going to tie this wire to that and pull it to the side. And that will keep tension on it and get it off the ground. Okay, so now the next step is side tying. Now side tying is what keeps the wire suspended on its run through the woods. Without that, it just wouldn't work because you can't get enough tension to get it up off the ground otherwise. So what you do with side tying is you use lighter gauge wire. So like here in my hand, you can see this stuff. It's a 14 gauge wire and it's pretty bendable. That other stuff that I put through that I'm going to suspend the main line on is 12.5 gauge high tensile. So that is because you use the lighter gauge wire because if a tree falls on it or something like that, an animal runs through it, whatever, the lighter gauge side tie wire will break and it'll leave the main line wire intact, which is the most important thing because it's a lot easier to put up just a little piece of side tie wire and replace that. So I'll show you how we do this. So again, we're sliding the wire through the used piece of plastic tubing, and if they have a little burr on the end or something like that, it can get a little tough to push through. So you pull that through and then you simply twist it on the wire. So here we go around the tree and boom, we're on the back around the tree. Now you get on this side of the wire and you push with your body, actually, to put more tension on so you can get it real nice and tight. About as much as you're comfortable doing. Then you cut it with a little bit of extra length and then you start tying it around. There you go. It's pretty taut. What I do is I go back over here, slide that piece of tubing back around the tree. And again, this is so it doesn't grow into the trees. And then you go up and down or you go back up the hill towards the end, and you just keep adding your side tie wires onto the main line to get it up off the ground. So you do that for about every 30 feet or so. Sometimes you have to do it more often in a big curve where you're trying to make a big curve in the main line. So if it's fairly straight, you're probably talking about 30 feet. But if it's a big curve you're trying to build into it, you're probably gonna have to put it closer together to do that, to form that curve. So that's about it. That's really pretty simple. I'm gonna continue on with the side ties. Okay guys, I don't know if you can see it, but I've pretty much got all my side ties in. The wire's up, suspended. It's pretty tight. I'm just down here at the end and gonna do just some final, just a few cranks on this to give it a little bit more tension. But you don't want to give it too much and have the whole thing snap and fall down on you. I've had that happen, and believe me, very, very disappointing. Okay guys, I'm walking down to the bottom end from the top end where I've got everything tightened up for the most part. Last thing I like to do, one final thing that I like to do, is I take a little bit of level along with me and I just place it on the wire as I'm going back down through the woods, just to make sure I have grade. So let's check that out. And as you can see, the air bubble goes way to the left, so definitely got a good slope going on here, and everything looks pretty good. That's step one, setting up the mainline wire. The next step I will be doing is putting in the blue 1-inch mainline, but that's next. Okay, so we're on to the next step of the process, which is putting up the mainline tubing itself. So what I've got here down on the ground is a roll of 500 foot of 1-inch mainline. I'm just going to start rolling that out, and what I'm going to do is just walk ahead and pull it throughout the woods. And again, it's on that wire dereeler, and I'm going to get started with that. Alright guys, I've been working on pulling this out. I've got 500 feet pulled out now, and I'm going to go continue on with the next roll. 1-inch mainline pulled all the way out from beginning to end. I figure it's around 1,250 feet or so. So now I'm just going to trim it off. I'm going to cut it off with plenty of extra just to be safe. And then I've got stuff to work with. Okay guys, the next step is to splice the pieces of mainline together. So we're going to get into that right now. Okay, so we're going to splice these two pieces of 1-inch mainline together. So bear with me. Bucket of tools. First thing you're going to do is cut off the ends to get that plug out of there. It's a cool day out here, guys. It's like 29 degrees. It is November 13th, Friday the 13th. And it's 2020, so who knows what's gonna happen with this. Okay. So this tool is called a mainline pliers. And it's made to put that stainless steel splice in between the two lines and then clamp it or tighten it down together. Now, like I said, it's called a mainline pliers. I like to call it the worst tool ever made, because there's really nothing easy about this tool doing it by yourself. Very awkward, and it's just kind of it's tough. So anyway, I got those clamped in there. Basically, this white thing in my hand is called a flaring cone, and obviously what that does is flares the end of the tube. You know, you kind of gotta use your whole body to do this, to support the tool. As you can see, it's got a crank on one hand that you crank. You gotta keep adjusting this to get stuff straight. But anyway, so I'm gonna crank down on this and get those ends so you can fit that stainless steel connector in there. But anyway, I've got that flared pretty decent. Boom. Okay, we're gonna warm up the ends so it slides in there a little bit easier, because this stuff is cold and not easy to work. So I like to get it pretty warm. Stainless steel. Clamp it down. Maybe try to get it started in there by hand at first anyway. And then you start cranking, and you're gonna have to kind of position it. Okay, here we go. And you're always gonna have to kind of adjust with your hand so it goes in there straight. If it starts going in there crooked, it's going to bite up against the inside wall and you're gonna have problems. That's why you warm it up. And we're pushing. This one's actually going pretty good. Boom, we got it. So you put, I mean, that stainless steel, I would definitely recommend using that as a splice. I mean, you can go to the hardware store or whatever and get some plastic ones, but they will not hold like this. They will not bite on the inside of that tube like this does, and they can break too. I've seen them pull out. I hope everybody's having a good week. As you can see, we got a little snow on the ground here last night. I don't know what that is. I'm gonna leave it. I'm making a video, guys. Don't call me during the videos. Boom. All right, we got that. That actually went pretty slick. All right, we're back here at the end, and we are gonna secure it to the end tree. So I'm gonna get busy. And then I'm going to look for my end plug. Okay, right here. So I'm gonna put my clamp on first this time. All right, so I got the plug in the end. You need that. Now I'm putting on a tension grip. And this thing slides on to the pipe. And there you go. Once you pull back on it, it will not let go. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna put it up here quite a ways. Attach a wire to it with the gripple deal. Okay, so basically I just hooked up another wire around the end tree and to the tension grip right here, and that's just going to stay as is, because now I got to go way down to the other end and start tightening up from that end with another tension grip and kind of get all the slack out of the main line as much as possible, and then I will, you know, work on tying it to the mainline wire. But as I go back down to the other end, I'm going to put wire ties periodically to kind of hold this thing up and get it in position somewhat, so to speak, before I do the final tightening. So what I'm doing as I am walking back to the other end is I'm tying up the main line to the wire at the trees where I side tied. So like this, get one of these little wire tie things, and that works pretty good. So that kind of gets it up at least off the ground. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm on to the next step of tying the blue main line to the wire with the little wire ties. And what you can see here is I've gone about every foot or 16 inches. And I can do one in about every 5 seconds. So I figure this is 1,200 feet. It should take me like 100 minutes because I'm doing 12 a minute. So we'll see. There'll be some hiccups in there, I'm sure. So I should be able to get this done in about 2 hours. Exciting stuff, guys, but you got to do it. If you can get a rhythm going, that's what you want. Speed. This is the manual twist tool. There is kind of another one out there, an automatic twister where you just pull. I have one of those in the shop to sell, but I'm going old school. And by the way, guys, if you are a hobbyist and you're interested in getting into maple syrup, I am the hobbyist's friend. I sell the equipment, supplies, so give me a look up, www.themapledude.com. You can contact me there. You can contact me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm not on Snapchat, and I hope I stay off of there. When you get around where you have a side tie to the tree with the side tie wire, I like to put a few of these because there's a lot of stress right there, and you should be good to go. So what everyone up to for next maple syrup season? If you're already in the game, what are you adding, or what are you improving on your operation? Because that's kind of the name of the game with maple syrup. Every year you got to buy something new. Essentially, you never really get ahead. Haha. So in the comments below, tell me what it is you are working on for next season. If you got any questions in the comments, let me know. I would be happy to answer them. Trying to grow this page a little bit. It's not entirely about maple syrup. I'm going to get into, and I do have a few videos out there of ATVs. That's one of my biggest hobbies, is actually three-wheelers, actually from the 80s. Please like, I guess like is Facebook, subscribe to this. Alright guys, I'm on to sort of the next phase of this project. What I'm doing now is installing 3/4 inch main lines to go into the 1 inch primary main line that goes back to the tank. So I'm going to flip this around. As you can see, I've already got the 3/4 inch laid out, and I'm going back up the hill towards the end. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's primarily the same process as putting up that 1 inch. What you do want to know though, like over there in the distance, I think maybe you can see it, there's a blue line over there, that's another 3/4 inch. I've spaced these about 150 feet apart roughly, and that is because I will be having the laterals, which we'll get to later in the video, going off on each side, coming in on each side. And you want to space your main lines going down throughout the woods about that 150 range, give or take. Okay, so I'm going to show you my method for securing the main line to your anchor points, your end trees. So what we got going on here is I have the tension grip already slid on the pipe. I use crimping sleeves on the tension grip. So we put that through there, slide those into place, and then you have your crimping tool. You just crimp that down on there real well. Then you get enough wire to go around the end tree. So that should be enough. Cut it off. So then on this end I use a gripple because they're pretty simple and quick to use. You put that on first, then you slide your wire through your scrap tubing and you slide it in. Then I like to go down here and pull on the pipe as much as I can with my weight, just to get as much slack out as I can by hand before I start tightening with the gripple tool. And then guys, you just start using your gripple tool. Just get it nice and tight and snug, and if you want to tighten up your main line a little bit better, you can do that with your side ties to the trees by shortening up the wire there. Alright guys, I'm going to show you a method that I use for securing the 3/4 inch main line at the upper end at the anchor tree up there. Now up on this end I don't use a tension grip. Those are kind of pricey and stuff, and you don't really need to do it on the upper end, especially if it's not a super long run. Now however, on a really long run, like on my primary main line, the 1 inch that's going through the woods, I did put a tension grip on each end just because it's so long. But on these 3/4 inch branch main lines that go out from that one inch, they're only about 300 feet long, 400 feet long sometimes. I do this at the end. I quickly put some wire ties on it to keep it in place, and then after that what I simply do is I put stainless steel clamp on the tube behind the gripple. I actually do 2 of them, 2 again behind the gripple, tighten them down, and that's it. That's in there really tight. And of course we will put a plug here in the end. Then I'll go down to the other end and pull it tight with that tension grip and secure it down there. So what we're going to do now is on to the next step, is I am going to be connecting all the 3/4 inch main lines into the 1 inch main line, the primary main line that runs through the woods to the collection tank. So I'm just going to show you how that's done with the tools I use and everything like that. So I found the spot where this is going to be connected. So the first thing you got to do is slide these wire ties down and out of your way, because you're going to need to do that to have some room to work here. Now I've got my sled full of tools along here, and now we're back to using this mainline plier. This one has fittings for both 1 inch and 3/4 inch mainline. So we're going to put that in there under the wire, clamp it down real good. Now I'm going to grab my stainless steel Y fitting, and I'm going to kind of fit that in there like so, about where it needs to go. So I'm just going to hand place it in there, and I'm going to look at like about where things would fit up. Now I'm going to grab this tubing cutter, and I'm going to line that up. Believe me, you don't want to do that without the tubing cutter. It would be really impossible to do it with a utility knife. Plus you could probably hurt yourself. So what I'm going to do now is, you can see where the threads are here and the threads are here. Instead of just cutting out a little bit, that same amount, what I'm going to do is actually cut out more because we want to tighten up this tubing as much as we can. So if we take out a little bit more, it allows us to kind of tighten up the mainline tubing again a bit. So once I've cut that out, then I'm going to put this thing in there. This is the flaring cone, and what this does is just what the name is. It flares out the end of the 1 inch. I'm cranking down, and it's got this handle on there so you can kind of manipulate it a bit. Okay, so that's good. Let's loosen it up, take that out. Now the next step, I'm going to grab my pipe clamps and put them on first so I don't have to do it later. And I do 2 each side. That's just to be extra secure and prevent against leaks or the fitting pulling out. Now I'm going to start cranking it down. This is where sometimes it can get a bit sketchy. What I brought, I have a rubber mallet with me, and what that allows me to do is just kind of whack it as I'm tightening it, because as you can see there, maybe you can see, what it does is it just doesn't quite want to go in straight all the time, and it wants to bite up against the wall of the inside of the pipe. Once you see that happening, you just give it a little tap and kind of persuade it into position. In tightening, like I said, I'm going to tighten it down there as much as I can. Look here, I got that tighter. I pulled it up tighter than the piece I cut out. Pipe clamps there and ready to go. Now, kind of fit up the 3/4 inch to the barb that it goes on. Again, that really makes the job easy. Pipe clamps, put them on first. And then you bring along your torch. But you just get this nice and heated up, and then this is just fit on by hand. Look at that. Boom. Goes right down on there. I just put my pipe clamps down into position. Put your wire ties back into place. And that's it. There you have it. We installed that. So I'm going to just continue to go through the woods, work my way up to the upper end, and keep adding these fittings in. And all right, guys, now we're on to the next step of putting in the lateral lines. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that process, the basics, to get you going so you are knowledgeable enough to install lateral lines properly. Okay, everyone, what we're going to do now is we're going to install the lateral lines, and what I have right here is semi-rigid 5/16 tubing. Now this is pretty standard in the maple industry. In most cases you'll want to use the semi-rigid. It's more flexible and it grips to the barbs on the fittings better than the rigid. And what I have it here is in a 500-foot roll, and it's on this wire derailleur. And I've hooked that on my main line, and that allows me to walk with it out to the trees, and this will spin and derail it. So what we're looking to do when we go forward is we're going to go from side to side on each maple tree, pretty much in most cases alternating from one side as we go past the tree, and that will, by tension, keep it lifted up and off the ground. So I'm going to start walking and going out to a few trees that I've spotted. Start walking up the hill and looking for your path to your trees. Now, I'm not going to get into identifying trees here in this video, but you just look for your maple trees. There's one. Here is one, another one, and you're looking to go on each side of them, from side to side. Now we're here at the end maple tree for this run. So what I'm going to do is go around the tree like this, and I'm going to show you a special fitting. Okay. This, my friends, is called a slide fitting. And this is what we're going to use to secure to the end tree. And it has two pieces. There's a hook and the slide fitting itself. Now we're going to put this on right here. Takes a little bit of effort, but it snaps in there. And now what I like about these is this is all you have to do. So all you do, guys, is you put the hook over the 5/16 tubing right there, and then you take the other end of the side of the tube, or the tube that's laying over the top, and you lay it in the slide fitting, and then you take the top part of the slide fitting and you just push it in there. And you can use like your tubing tool or whatever you got up, pliers, and you tighten it down. And it's really that simple. I like it a lot because you don't have to cut the tubing at the end or anything to put in an end fitting. That's it right there. It's one continuous loop around the tree with no cutting of the tube. And then later on we'll put our spout on here. I'm back down at the main line end of the 5/16 lateral line, and I'm just going to attach that to the main line in the same way. I want to use the slide fitting again. So let's do that. A couple tips that you want to do is, I like to pull on the main line over towards it, because we use this also helps tension the main line. So right there, that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to put my slide fitting on at that point. And here we go again. Just lay it in there, and boom. Go like that. Okay, so we've got that on there real well. Now I'm just going to attach it to our mainline wire, because this time I don't use the hook piece. That's just for the tubing. This hook built in is for the wire. And again, I really like that kind of fitting because there's no cutting of the tube. Normally you'd have a little splice in here with a hook on it that you'd have to cut in and use a tubing tool to put in there. This is just much quicker, and again, there's no breaking of the tube. So all you do then is you cut off your 5/16, give yourself plenty of room to work with, because later on I'll come back and I will put in the manifolds, which will tie this into the main line, and we'll do that later. Some tips for installing lateral lines, guys, would be this. You want to keep it nice and tight because you want to keep a nice grade to your main line, and like I showed you, use some of the tension of the mainline wire to bring tension to the lateral behind it. Some other tips are, they say strive for 5, so you try to get about 5 taps on each lateral line coming in. That's so you don't overload it and you get good vacuum transfer to the taps on the line. It's just a guideline to go by to make it as efficient as possible. Other than that, you know, you are going to need a few tools. This is tubing cutting tool, pliers, whatever. I just use that to cut tubing. It will put fittings on. That's one tool to have. Another tool to have would be the two-handed tubing tool. This would be the tool that, you'll see me use this later when we put in the tees with the drop lines, but this is a tool that grabs onto the main line and cuts it. And like when I'm even doing this, sometimes we'll have to splice tubing together. You'd use this to cut it. it would pull it apart, and then you'd splice it back together with this fitting, this barbed splice fitting. So those are some of the tools you want to have. Let's install the manifold on the main line. So right here I'm next to one of the main lines, and that's the next step. We're going to move down our wire ties to give us some room to work. And then we're going to take our 5/16 that we looped around that's connected to the wire, and we're going to find where that would attach in. And then you're going to get this mainline punch out, and this is a tool that's just used to clamp on to the main line and drill a little hole in it. And it's a 31/64 hole, which sounds kind of weird because why would they make it 31/64? I don't know, but that's what it is. So you've got to find about where you need to go. It takes a little bit of playing around to get the adjustment right, but right there, I'm on the top, and then you just drill in like that. And that's about all there is. Release it, pull it out. This is the manifold, and it's a plastic fitting, and it's got a rubber gasket. You put the rubber gasket down in the hole. It's got a little lip on it, and you want to make sure that goes all the way down in. But that's it. And then, as you can see on the bottom, it's got a little nipple type thing that you put on the top of the hole, and you push into place. Boom, push that down in there. And away we go. Let's strap it down. So then it's got these two kind of like zip tie like things, straps, and they're adjustable for different size mainline. But anyway, then you get a pliers and you clamp them down like this. You can hear it click. Check it out, it looks pretty good. Final step in this process is to attach the lateral line to the manifold, and I just use my regular tubing tool. Get behind there, and that's it. You're all good to go. That's how you install a mainline manifold, and then you move on to the next one. Okay, now we're on to the next step, which is kind of the final step of this whole tubing install, and that is installing the drop lines. Now a drop line, for those of you who don't know, that's just the term they use for this length of tubing that connects into your 5/16 lateral lines that we installed earlier. And a drop line is this. It's about 36 to 40 inches of the 5/16 semi-rigid tubing with a T on one end. That's a T, that fitting that I'm holding up. And then a spout on the other end. Now, this spout in particular is called a stubby spout. It's short, but it accepts an adapter that you can take off and replace every year. And the reason for that is you get more sap yield by replacing the plastic that goes in the tree every year than reusing. And in this wood, this is what I've chosen to use, is a stubby spout with adapters that will go in the tree once we're tapping. But let's install this. And all you do is you go up to the tree and you open up those two clamps, the tubing holders, grips, whatever. Boom, you grab onto it. It's got a knife. That cuts the tube and holds it in place while you're getting your drop line. Then the next thing you do is you put your drop line in there. You put it into place, and watch this. Boom, you just force it back together, and you've got that airtight seal right there. This pin on here is made for off-season kind of storage or plugging it. So that's where that goes, is you just put that on there like that. Okay, some tips for tapping. On trees that are about 10 inches in diameter, you go with one. You can start at that size. Some people maybe go 8 inches, but 10 inches gets one tap. So After that, most trees with vacuum, you just need one tap. The yield's not really going to change by putting a second tap on unless they get quite a bit bigger. One of the old rules of thumb that they had out there was that if you could reach around the tree and not touch your hands, you could put 2 taps on it. So for instance, right here, of course I can reach around, but if I went up to a tree and my hands didn't touch, that means you could put 2 on there. So that's kind of something I go by. Obviously I might have longer arms than some people, but it's kind of a general rule. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this whole tubing install video. I have to keep going and putting in all the drop lines and everything like that. That kind of took you from the beginning to the end of a maple sap tubing installation, from the main lines, wires, lateral lines, saddles, drop lines, 5/16 lines, everything. And I hope you found it interesting learning about some of these crazy tools. So guys, please like and subscribe to the Maple Dude channel, and I'll keep trying to do some of these videos. And as the season gets closer, I hope to have more videos out for you. Again, please like and subscribe to the channel. Have a great week, and remember, always keep it real. Thanks for watching, everybody. I just wanted to say, if you're interested in getting into maple syrup, or you already do, and you're looking for maple supplies and things like that, I do sell them at my store, and you're free to come in. Also, I am a dealer for Smoky Lake Maple products. You can help out a small business like this. I'm pretty much a one-man show, hustling it all the time. Go to the first link in the description below in this video, and you will see my personal link to Smoky Lake Maple products. And if you purchase there, it helps support this page, and it helps kind of support my small business. And I do highly recommend their products because they are quality, high craftsmanship maple products made right here in the United States, and right here even in Wisconsin. So I thank you for that. It really helps out a small guy out there like myself. So everybody take care, and remember, always keep it real.